to get you, they're gonna track you down. He pulled your gun from the hip, shot the rich man down. She got a ride, outlaw ride. He got a ride, outlaw ride. He killed a man in self-defense for his ride, outlaw ride. They'll track you down and kill you, never lie with it.
The Texas so often portrayed by Hollywood movies, vast desert expanses, home to the rugged and lonely cowboy, is only a part of the Texas mystique. In actuality, Texas is a multifaceted state where cosmopolitan cities and enterprising industries are set against the backdrop of diverse and contrasting landscapes. The flag of the Republic of Texas flies alongside those of 5 other nations who have claimed Texas as theirs: Spain, France, Mexico, the Confederacy, and the United States. For more than any other reason, however, Texas is set apart because it is the only U.S. state which can boast that it was once a country unto itself. From these bold chapters of history, a rich cultural blend of people has emerged, whose ethnic diversity is still actively celebrated, but whose common Texan identity is felt unquestionably with equal amounts of loyalty and pride. Texas is located in the south-central region of the United States and is bordered by the states of New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana, the country of Mexico, and the Gulf of Mexico. Texas is a big place, second only in size to the state of Alaska. Spanning approximately 800 miles from north to south and the same distance from east to west, individual counties can be found here that are larger than some U.S. states. In Texas, the major geographic features of North America converge: the tail end of the Rocky Mountains, the desert, the Great Plains, the forests, and the sea. In fact, Texas also has more inland water than any state except Alaska, and more than 23 million acres of woodlands. West Texas is where the state's true mountains and deserts can be found. Back in the late 1500s, Spanish conquistadors first rode through this area, discovering El Paso del Norte, the Pass of the North. This important discovery of the southernmost and lowest altitude pass in the Rocky Mountains provided access to the north for Spanish colonists in Mexico. They were lured by tales of vast treasures of gold and silver in what is now New Mexico and far west Texas. Today, the city of El Paso is located in the westernmost point of the state and serves to link Texas with the southwestern region of the U.S. However, the dominant cultural presence in the city is Mexican, since El Paso is joined by a common border, the Rio Grande River, to the Mexican city of Juarez. Juarez is the 4th largest city in Mexico and one of the largest border cities in the world. Juarez can be reached in El Paso by bridge, where shopping is a favorite pastime for those crossing the border. With its proximity to Juarez, El Paso is known as the Mexican food capital of Texas. Tex-Mex cuisine is a regional style found throughout southern and western Texas and includes such favorites as enchiladas and fajitas. The first settlements in Texas grew up around Spanish missions and presidios, which were established along the Rio Grande on the Camino Real. Used by Spanish settlers and conquistadors, the Camino Real, or Royal Highway, was the first road in North America. Along the 12-mile stretch known today as Mission Trail, a number of the oldest missions in North America can still be found. They are unique in their Indian-influenced style of architecture. the Spanish, the Tigua Indians built Isleta del Sur Mission in 1681. This is the oldest Spanish mission in Texas. The Paso del Norte Hotel is a historic landmark in El Paso. The Dome Bar, which was once the hotel lobby, features an exquisitely designed and preserved Tiffany stained glass dome. Originally built in 1912, this hotel became the meeting place for cattlemen and ranchers, who routinely bought and sold cattle in its lobby. The hotel was also a favorite place to gather and follow the progress of the Mexican Revolution and the escapades of Mexican revolutionary Pancho Villa. From the Colorado mountain peaks, the Rio Grande flows southward through New Mexico to El Paso, Texas. Here, the river forms the international border with Mexico for 1,250 miles before finally emptying out into the Gulf of Mexico. Surpassed in length only by the Mississippi River, the Rio Grande runs its course through deep canyons and flat lowlands. The Spanish-named El Camino del Rio, or River Road, hugs a particularly beautiful stretch of this river on the American side, extending from the town of Presidio to the town of Lajitas. Today, Lajitas is a desert resort town, which lies at the western edge of Big Bend National Park. Lajitas was first established in 1915 as a cavalry outpost to protect the area from Pancho Villa. Since the 1880s, the Lajitas Trading Post has been operating in the same adobe building, and Mexicans still cross the river to trade here. Neighboring Terlingua sprang up in typical boomtown fashion when mercury ore was discovered in the Big Bend area in the late 1800s. Today, Terlingua is considered a ghost town, although a handful of people do actually live here year-round. Big Bend is a curve in the Rio Grande, where the river's most scenic portions have been preserved as the Big Bend National Park. Here, the river cuts through 3 mountain ranges, creating striking canyons, which are set amongst the untamed wilderness of the Chihuahuan Desert. It is a spectacular and austere beauty of the Chisos Mountains and the park's celebrated canyons, which lure most visitors to this park. A 19th century Mexican vaquero once described Big Bend as a place where the rainbows wait for the rain. The big river is kept in a stone box. Water runs uphill, and mountains float in the air, except at night, when they go away to play with other mountains. To the northeast is the oasis of West Texas, San Angelo. Built in 1867 at the junction of the north and middle branches of the Concho River, Fort Concho is the first site established in this frontier. Today, this National Historic Landmark is considered to be one of the best preserved military forts from the Indian Wars period in the country. In its time, this fort helped protect several mail routes, cattle drives, and stage lines, which all passed through the area. Before the fort was built, the Plains Indians from the north made this portion of Texas uninhabitable for European settlers. Concho Street is the oldest street in San Angelo. Around the turn of the 20th century, the street became a strip of saloons and brothels. The most notorious of the parlor houses, Miss Hattie's, operated from 1896 until 1946. In its day, this bordello was considered to be the very finest and housed some of the most elegant furnishings found in the town. In fact, this bathroom was the first ever built in San Angelo. It is said that the neighboring bank shared a secret tunnel with Miss Hattie's. Clients entered the bank on the pretense of taking care of their business affairs, while actually visiting their favorite ladies next door. Miss Hattie herself lived in San Angelo until 1982, where she died at the age of 104. Also found on Concho Street is the R.E. Donahoe Saddlery. This establishment has been making custom saddles in San Angelo continuously since 1890, and is where Pancho Villa had his saddle work done. This saddlery has always been kept in the ownership of its employees, who learned their trade working in this shop. In all these years, it has never been sold to an outside interest. The saddles built here are handmade to the customer's specifications, and most are meant for hard usage out on the ranch. Whenever possible, both the horse and the rider are measured to ensure the best fit. Outside of San Angelo, along the banks of the Concho River, is a limestone cliff known as Paint Rock, one of the largest Indian pictograph sites in the United States. The land surrounding Paint Rock is privately owned by Kay Campbell, whose grandparents settled in this area in the 1880s.
The bluff here at Paint Rock provided the Native Americans a perfect place to camp as they followed the river here and found the bluff, which is 60 feet high and faces south, providing winter protection from the wind and summer protection from the sun. They chose to make this a really special place. Indians camped here for thousands of years. We're not sure when the first painting was made, but it's believed that it was made over 1,000 years ago. They were painting here up until 1868.
Of all traditional cowboy gear, the cowboy boot is the most widely sought-after item of Western wear. M.L. Leddy's is one of the oldest and most respected names in handmade boots in Texas. This family-owned business has been operating since 1922. First, the foot is measured, and then a custom-made last or model of the customer's foot is created. The boot is then cut and sewn to fit the last. The last is labeled with the customer's name and kept in-house, so additional boots can be ordered at any time. Ranging in price from $500 to $5,000. A pair of custom-made boots can be worn for a lifetime with periodic resoling. Located throughout the state, dude ranches are a popular Texas tradition where city folk are welcome guests on working ranches and are given the chance to experience the daily life of a cowhand. Brad Whitfield of the Prude Ranch explains the importance of horses on a working ranch.
All ranches have horses on them, and there's a reason for these horses. They're used as a tool. They're something that you have to work these cattle with, to gather the cattle and do all the things that are to be done with the cattle. You do it a horseback. And in the same turn, most good cowboys, you can kind of judge them by the kind of horse they ride. If a cowboy's sure a pretty good hand, he'll be riding a good horse that can really do something with a cow.
gateway to South Texas, San Antonio is rich in colonial and frontier history and is respected for its multicultural blend of Old World and New World charm. One of America's most picturesque cities, San Antonio is the 10th largest city in the nation and the only one with a Mexican-American majority. This festive city has a keen interest in preserving its past and enthusiastically celebrates the cultural diversity of its people. Spanish missions formed the foundation for the city of San Antonio. In the early 1700s, Franciscan missionaries journeyed to this new frontier and established some of the earliest of the 38 missions built in Texas. San Antonio was the site of 5 of these church communities, which introduced Christianity to the Indians of the Southwest. Mission San Jose, founded in 1720, is considered to be one of the finest examples of Spanish mission architecture in the United States, and is the best restored of San Antonio's missions. On the south side of the sacristy is Rosa's window. It was carved by a sculptor who worked for 5 years on this detailed ornamentation, while mourning the death of his wife, Rosa. Once the capital of the Spanish province of Texas, and the center for their missionary work with the Indians, San Antonio, in later years, was taken from Spain by Mexico in the Mexican Revolution of 1821. Mission San Antonio de Valero, commonly known as the Alamo, is recognized as the cradle of Texas liberty. When Texas declared her independence in 1836, the Alamo became the site of an infamous battle. A band of 187 Texas volunteers, willing to die for freedom, defied Mexico's army of 5,000 soldiers in a fierce battle which lasted for 13 days. All of the defenders of the Alamo died, including Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, and William Travis, but not before fatally wounding a staggering 1,600 Mexican soldiers. The battle cry, "Remember the Alamo," carried forth, and Texan independence was soon secured at the Battle of San Jacinto. Paseo del Rio, San Antonio's scenic riverwalk, is one of the most popular sections of the city. Cobblestone paths and arched stone bridges are set below street level and follow a 2.5-mile portion of the river. An array of cafes, restaurants, and boutiques are featured along this beautifully landscaped walk. In addition to Spanish and Mexican influences, German immigrants also settled in San Antonio, and for a time all street signs appeared in Spanish, English, and German. These Victorian homes on King William Street were built by German merchants and are the finest in this 25-block historic district. King William Street is often thought to be the most beautiful residential street in all of Texas. Outside of the city, the largest marine amusement park in the world, SeaWorld of Texas, is home to the celebrated killer whale Shamu. This marine life showplace is both entertaining and educational. Fiesta Texas joins SeaWorld as one of San Antonio's most popular attractions. This theme park features a non-stop celebration of the culture and traditions of South Texas, brought to life through song and dance. Fiesta Texas's signature ride, the Rattler, is the highest and fastest wooden roller coaster in the world. Hurtling down a 166-foot drop, this ride reaches speeds of 73 miles per hour. Known as Hill Country, Central Texas is a natural paradise of rolling hills and colorful displays of spring wildflowers. For one of the world's largest aquifers, buried deep beneath this region, is a source of crystal clear waters. Spring-fed pools, creeks, rivers, and lakes make Central Texas a mecca for outdoor recreation, attracting Texans from all over the state. Historic green is typical of the many quaint towns found throughout Hill Country. First settled by German farmers in the mid-1840s, the surrounding countryside offered rich and fertile farmland. The Green Dance Hall and Saloon was built in the 1880s, providing entertainment for the neighboring farmers and a center of the community's social life. Today it is reputed to be the oldest dance hall in Texas. The Colorado River flows through the state's capital and the anchor of Central Texas, the city of Austin. The Republic of Texas lasted for nearly a decade before joining the United States in 1845. But even when Texas was a country unto itself, Austin was the seat of the Republic. Construction of this impressive state capitol building, the largest in the nation, took 7 years and is made from pink granite. Modeled after the Capitol in Washington, D.C., this structure rises an additional 7 feet. Austin has a progressive lifestyle, which is buoyed by the 5 universities and colleges located here. The atmosphere of the city is laid back and youthful, which is evidenced most in its parks, restaurants, and clubs. Found on menus throughout the state, chili is a Texas institution and the official state dish. As served here at the Texas Chili Parlor in Austin, traditional Texas chili is a meat stew prepared in a fiery sauce of chilies, onions, and spices. As any Texan will tell you, if you know beans about chili, you know chili has no beans. Another Texas culinary tradition is the barbecue. Ribs, brisket, sausage, and chicken cooked over mesquite to perfection. Congress Avenue and East 6th Street have been the center of downtown life in Austin since the mid-1800s. The historic buildings on East 6th Street have become the hub of Austin's renowned music scene since the 1970s. An incredible variety of live music can be enjoyed here, as it is said that there are more musicians and music venues per capita in Austin than anywhere else in the nation. The Broken Spoke is one of Texas's legendary honky-tonks, providing live entertainment since 1964. Plain and unpretentious, honky-tonks are a place to dance, which is something Texans have been doing since the days of the frontier. Broken Spoke owner James White gives his definition of a honky-tonk.
You got good country music, you got live country band music, you got somebody to dance with, you got a cold beer, you get your good girl in your arms, and you dance out here, and you have a good time. Now that's my definition of a honky-tonk.
Extending along the entire southeastern boundary of the state, Texas's Gulf Coast offers 624 miles of sun-drenched coastline on the shimmering Gulf of Mexico. This shoreline surrenders gradually, first as marsh, and then as a series of shallow bays which open out into the Gulf, creating a variety of sandy beaches, inlets, and barrier islands. Galveston was Texas's first real seaport, and by 1890 had become the state's largest and wealthiest city. This lively port housed banks, shipping companies, and cotton brokers, and some of the most distinguished buildings yet constructed in this country. Modeled after London's street of the same name, the Strand was the center of Galveston's renowned financial district, which earned a reputation from St. Louis to San Francisco as the Wall Street of the Southwest. Although these buildings survived the storm, Galveston's destiny was forever altered by the Great Hurricane of 1900. Still ranking today as the worst natural disaster in United States history, more than 6,000 people perished in the storm, and entire sections of the city vanished overnight. In an inspired feat of engineering, the city was raised some 17 feet in places, and this massive 10-mile-long seawall was constructed to protect the city from future hurricanes. Today, Seawall Boulevard is one of the longest beachfront promenades in the country. Galveston has put a major effort toward restoration, resulting in hundreds of historic structures. The city is full of late 19th century homes built in the Greek Revival and Victorian styles. The Bishop Palace is on the American Institute of Architects list of the 100 most significant buildings in the nation. The Rainforest Pyramid is the newest addition to Galveston's Moody Gardens, a 142-acre nonprofit recreational and educational facility. Inside this 40,000 square foot rainforest are more than 1,000 exotic species of plants, which are indigenous to Asia, Africa, and the Americas, along with a large variety of birds, butterflies, and fish. The purpose of the Rainforest Pyramid is to offer the public an opportunity to experience the incredible diversity of a tropical rainforest in an effort to build awareness of the need for conservation of our natural resources. When the Galveston Historical Foundation went looking for a 19th century merchant ship which was part of the seaport's history, they found the Alyssa rusting away in a shipyard in Greece. The Alyssa had made calls at Galveston in 1883 and 1886. Completely restored, this tall ship is the third oldest afloat in the world. Once a year, she makes a voyage to sea, but most of the time is moored at Pier 21 in the Galveston Channel. Galveston Bay is linked by a busy 50-mile ship channel to the largest metropolis in Texas, the city of Houston. This man-made waterway for ocean-going freighters has transformed Houston into America's third largest port. When the city's early leaders first dreamed of making Houston one of the great world ports, no one could understand how a pioneer settlement along the banks of the winding Buffalo Bayou could have such lofty dreams. The conversion of the bayou to a ship channel prompted rapid industrial growth and did in fact become the key to Houston's economic success. At this gateway to the city, the San Jacinto Monument commemorates the victorious battle in which Texas revolutionary forces defeated Mexico and won independence. Rising 570 feet, this impressive obelisk is one of the tallest masonry monuments in the world. Often referred to as the Energy City, Houston took its name from the Republic's first president, Sam Houston. After oil was discovered at nearby Spindletop in 1901, the city became the center of the nation's petrochemical industry. With the influx of the petroleum market, Houston quickly grew and now ranks as the fourth largest city in the nation. As a state, Texas leads the U.S. in the production of oil, with some 175,000 wells, which produce 25% of America's oil. Mobil, Texaco, and Gulf are three of the present-day oil giants, which emerged from the oil fields of East Texas. The Johnson Space Center in Houston is a large research and development complex of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. All of America's astronauts are trained here, and much of the development for the Space Shuttle and the U.S. Space Station is coordinated at this facility. A NASA spokesperson describes one of the training exercises.
We'll actually put an astronaut into a spacesuit, lower him down inside this pool, and then wait him out so that he's neutrally buoyant. He doesn't sink to the bottom or float to the surface.
How's that power tool working for you now?
We want to try with the 90-degree drive adapter on it.
and we'll simulate an entire spacewalk, or EVA, extravehicular activity, down inside this pool.
Adjacent to NASA, Space Center Houston offers the visitor an interactive look at manned spaceflight. This unique educational complex was designed by a team made up of NASA engineers and Walt Disney Imagineering at a cost of $70 million. The history of spaceflight is chronicled here, with interactive exhibits and full-scale mock-ups of spacecraft.
That's a vacuum. That's what you use for drying off. Because again, remember now in space, you can't shower like how we all shower here on Earth. There's no gravity. Here on Earth, gravity is the only thing that takes water down the drain.
Spokesperson Gwen Griffin explains the goals of Space Center Houston.
Our real mission is to get people excited about space flight. We have a really strong educational program. We are a nonprofit educational foundation. And one of our strong goals is to get kids in particular excited about math and science. And we found that space really excites kids, so we can reach them that way.
Located on the Gulf, 170 miles from Houston, the Aransas National Wildlife Refuge is the principal wintering ground of 389 bird species, which migrate to the tidal marshes found here. Established in 1937 to help protect the vanishing wildlife of coastal Texas, this refuge is also the winter home of the endangered whooping crane, and the only place in the United States where they can be seen. On the northern tip of Mustang Island is the tiny hideaway of Port Aransas. This old-fashioned fishing village offers miles of beach and a variety of fishing opportunities. This quaint seaside town is just the place to savor fresh seafood from the deep waters of the Gulf of Mexico, like these jumbo Gulf shrimp broiled to perfection. To the south is the sparkling city by the sea, Corpus Christi. Corpus, as it is referred to by most Texans, is a popular seacoast playground, especially favored by windsurfers. With an average year-round wind speed of 12 miles per hour, Corpus is rated one of the 10 best spots for windsurfing in the world. This pleasant seaside city has become a cosmopolitan vacation destination, where sailors and fishermen delight in unlimited sunshine on the sandy shores of the world's largest gulf. The undersea world of the Gulf of Mexico can be explored at the Texas State Aquarium. The biggest tank, holding over 132,000 gallons of water, is called Islands of Steel. It displays the type of reef habitat which is created by the gigantic offshore oil rigs found in the Gulf. Connected to Corpus on the north end by a causeway, Padre Island stretches 110 miles. earning it the distinction as the longest coastal barrier island in the world. 80 miles of Padre Island are preserved as a national seashore, which also makes it one of the last natural seashores in the nation. The interior stretch of this island is undeveloped and is federally protected, offering extensive primitive beach camping and seashore exploration. The forested region of East Texas is a landscape of lush vegetation, where small towns are set amongst millions of acres of towering pines, hardwood trees, and beautiful lakes. Spanning more than 11 million acres, the piney woods of East Texas cover an area the size of Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island combined. First founded on the banks of the Big Cypress Bayou, the historic town of Jefferson was once the major river port for East Texas. Back when the Cypress Bayou was navigable, river steamboats traveling all the way from Mississippi, Ohio, and Tennessee arrived here by way of the Red River, which was linked to the Mississippi River in Louisiana. Passengers bound for the western frontier made this journey, and after the Civil War, the town grew to be one of the largest in Texas, with a population of 30,000 at its peak. So confident was Jefferson in the future of the steamboat, it turned down an offer to become a stop on the railroad. However, when steamboat travel came to an end, it didn't take long for the population to fall to its current 3,000 residents. Except for the paved roads, much of Jefferson appears as it was, with an abundance of historic structures reminiscent of the Old South. The McKay House, built in 1851, is an excellent example of the many historic homes in Jefferson which have been converted into romantic bed and breakfast inns. North Central Texas is home to the major metropolitan areas of Fort Worth and Dallas. Distinctly different, these cities form the hub of a huge cosmopolitan center known as the Metroplex. The catalyst for what is now modern Dallas was the East Texas oil strike in 1930. Already established as a regional financial center, Dallas became manager of this immense oil wealth, and in so doing was propelled to new heights of affluence. Dallas is the 8th largest city in the nation, and is considered to be the banking center and business capital of the Southwest, and Texas's most cosmopolitan city. But Big D, as it is often referred to, is not all business. In fact, its financial success is evidenced by such proud achievements as the Dallas Arts District. 60 acres of prime downtown real estate have been set aside for sculpture gardens, museums, theater, and a center for the symphony. For the shopper, Dallas reigns supreme. Reputed to have more retail space per capita than any other American city, Dallas is a shopping extravaganza and home to the Neiman Marcus empire. The newly restored West End Marketplace has transformed a turn-of-the-century cookie and candy factory into a collection of specialty shops in the historic West End. Famous Dallas Alley, also in the West End, is one of Dallas's most popular night spots. November 22nd, 1963, is a date that will be forever etched in the minds of people everywhere. Enthusiastic Dallas residents lined the city streets to welcome the 35th President of the United States. The motorcade entered Dealey Plaza and made a sharp left turn at the corner of Elm and Houston Streets. Shots rang out from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. It was here that Lee Harvey Oswald had been waiting to assassinate John F. Kennedy. Today, the JFK Memorial pays tribute to this man who inspired hope and pride in millions of people worldwide. The myth of the rich Texan oil man wheeling and dealing with limitless wealth was certainly immortalized by J.R. Ewing in the 1980s television show Dallas, which has been broadcast in 95 countries. The impressive South Fork Ranch, the TV home of J.R., Bobby, and Sue Ellen, can be visited in Plano, just northeast of Dallas. Following the Civil War, the great Texas cattle drives flourished, and one of the very largest, the Chisholm Trail, ran right through Fort Worth. The town was the last major outpost along the trail before it continued on to Abilene, Kansas. So Fort Worth quickly grew, earning its reputation as Cowtown, USA. When the railroad came in 1876, Fort Worth became the end of the trail, and the livestock was then shipped northward by rail from here. In the early part of the century, the Fort Worth stockyards were the largest in the world. Today, this National Historic District is proud of its colorful cowboy past, as evidenced by this cattle drive through the city, sponsored by the National Cutting Horse Association. Many saloons, restaurants, and western wear shops along Exchange Avenue add to the daily activity in the Stockyards District. The Fort Worth Stockyards is also home to Billy Bob's Texas, the largest honky-tonk in the world. At an amazing 100,000 square feet, this entertainment center features live country music nightly with a seating capacity of 6,000. In addition to great country music, there's also live bull riding in the rodeo arena inside Billy Bob's every Friday and Saturday night. Supported by a philanthropic community, Fort Worth has an exceptional cultural arts district. This includes the Kimball Art Museum, acclaimed for both its art collection and its architecture. Designed by architect Louis Kahn, this building is a striking combination of vaulted ceilings and natural light sources.
Yeah.
Another of the city's landmarks is the Fort Worth Water Gardens. a spectacular series of terraces and water sculptures which are designed to be a respite from the noise of the city. The grasslands of the Great Plains extend mile after mile, from as far away as Canada and the Great Lakes to the Panhandle region of northern Texas. This is cattle country, a land of expansive vistas and big sweeping skies, where highways run for as far as the eye can see across sprawling working ranches and a patchwork of irrigated fields. A dramatic geographic feature, the Caprock Escarpment, interrupts the flatness of this huge prairie. This towering ridge of steep cliffs and deep canyons runs 250 miles across the Panhandle, from north to south, separating the high plains from the low plains. Some of the most scenic landscapes formed by the Caprock Escarpment can be found at Palo Duro Canyon State Park, where geologic time spanning 230 million years is exposed in the multicolored strata of the canyon's unusual rock formations. In 1876, legendary cattleman Charles Goodnight drove his herd of cattle into the canyon, starting the first commercial ranch in the Panhandle. In its peak, the J.A. Ranch covered nearly 1 million acres of land, which supported more than 100,000 head of cattle. Today, the Panhandle captures the majority of the state's cattle industry. More than 75% of the cattle in Texas are bought and sold in this region. Amarillo is the unofficial capital of the Panhandle. 3/4 of the state's stockyards are located near the city, and this country's largest weekly cattle auction is held every Tuesday at Amarillo's Western Stockyards. Annually, these stockyards sell 300,000 head of cattle. The Panhandle Plains Historical Museum in the town of Canyon is the oldest and largest state museum in Texas. The majority of the exhibits are dedicated to the hardy settlers of Northwest Texas and to the preservation of their heritage. The Ranching Hall exhibit documents the daily lives of cowboys on Panhandle ranches. To experience the life of a cowboy firsthand, the Figure 3 Ranch invites visitors to join them for an authentic cowboy morning breakfast on the rim of the Palo Duro Canyon. Filling the air is a tantalizing aroma of panhandle-sized eggs, rangeland sausage, and sourdough biscuits cooking over an open mesquite fire. Texas. The name comes from the Indian word Tejas, meaning friend, and here friendly attitudes just seem to come with the territory. Standing tall and proud, Texans have made the Lone Star State a place where rugged individualism thrives, much the same today as it has throughout its colorful past. From its frontier history to the modern mosaic of cosmopolitan cities, this vast land paints a timeless picture of strength and endurance that is uniquely Texas.
International Video Network brings you the greatest adventures in video entertainment. Award-winning documentaries from Reader's Digest, exploring the masterworks of man and nature. Travel planning videos from Fodors, revealing looks at the people, places, and cultures of the world. Rand McNally Video Expeditions, taking you to some of the most remote and dangerous places on Earth. Rand McNally Video Travelers, whirlwind tours you can enjoy from the comfort of your living room. Super Cities, celebrating the best-loved cities of the world. And Video Visits, whisking you away to exotic, romantic, and popular destinations. International Video Network. Great adventures in video. See your local video retailer or call International Video Network at 1-800-669-4486, extension 850 for your free catalog, featuring more than 250 travel, documentary, and special interest videos.
In the heart of the Southwest, there lies a captivating land of inspiring natural beauty, where centuries of legendary history are rooted in dramatic landscapes. It is a place where age-old traditions of unique cultures weave a rich tapestry, honoring the past while celebrating the future. The rhythmic beat of ancient drums has been enticing explorers, pioneers, and artists on a timeless journey of discovery that casts a lasting spell of magic and enchantment. Centuries before Europeans reached the Americas, New Mexico was home to native cultures. Archaeological excavations of once thriving ancient cities challenged the explorer to imagine the highly sophisticated civilizations that prospered in these ruins. These dwellings were built 1,000 years ago by the early ancestors of today's Pueblo Indians, the Anasazi, a peaceful and ceremoniously religious people. Their complex adobe and stone pueblos are believed to have been part of a great center of trade, evidenced by a vast network of roads linking many settlements throughout the region. Today, this strong Indian presence endures. The people of the 19 Indian pueblos of New Mexico, the Navajo tribe, and the Apache tribe all live in this state under their own sovereign rule. After conquering the great Aztec Empire in Mexico, the Spanish were lured further north to the uncharted lands of New Mexico with the prospect of gold. Intent on finding the fabled 7 cities of Cibola, an expedition led by Francisco Vázquez de Coronado set out on a slow and arduous journey in 1540. Propelled by the myth of cities paved with gold, the caravan was sorely disappointed upon reaching the adobe villages of the Pueblo Indians. Having abandoned their search for fictional riches, future expeditions were fueled by Spain's legendary missionary zeal. So began one of the most important chapters in New Mexico's rich historical past. New Mexico became the 47th state in the United States in 1912 and is located in the southwestern region of the country. New Mexico is bordered to the north by Utah and Colorado, to the west by Arizona, to the east and southeast by Oklahoma and Texas, and to the southwest by the country of Mexico. A distinctive mosaic of cultures and the natural beauty of northeastern New Mexico have attracted explorers and artists to this region for centuries. 7,000 feet above sea level on a high desert plateau, perched in the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, is New Mexico's capital city, Santa Fe. Often referred to as the City Different, the United States' oldest capital city boasts a thriving art colony, which continues to shape Santa Fe's unique cultural atmosphere. Narrow, winding streets, tan adobe walls shaded by century-old cottonwood trees reflect an architectural style influenced long ago by neighboring Pueblo Indian communities. an Anglo tricultural heritage more firmly rooted or more actively preserved than in the old world community of Santa Fe. 10 years before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock, Spain chose this site to be the provincial capital of New Spain in 1610. Situated at the end of the El Camino Real, Spain's royal road from Mexico, the Santa Fe Plaza remains in hands for nearly 4 centuries and is still considered to be the heart of the city today. Santa Fe's rich history is reflected in many of the time-honored buildings surrounding the plaza, which have become the very symbols of the city. On the north side, the Palace of the Governors was one of the first buildings erected by the Spanish. Built around a courtyard, this block-long structure with massive adobe walls was the seat of government under Spanish, Native American, Mexican, and U.S. territorial rule from 1610 until 1909. Today, the Palace of the Governors ranks as the oldest public building in the country. Exhibits chronicle the history of New Mexico, and its portal is the gathering place for Native Americans who sell their handcrafted art each day to passers-by. This beautiful building, the Museum of Fine Arts, is a showcase both for its Pueblo Revival style of architecture and for its collection of traditional and contemporary art, including the work of the Taos and Santa Fe masters. South of the plaza is the oldest mission in the United States, Mission San Miguel, which also dates back to Santa Fe's founding in 1610. By the mid-17th century, an estimated 14,000 Indians had been converted to the Catholic faith, but many more preferred their own beliefs. In time, hostilities toward the missionaries grew amongst those unwilling to convert. And in 1680, the Pueblo Indians united in defense of their religious practices and successfully ousted the Spanish. Indian occupation of Santa Fe lasted 12 years before Spain regained its stronghold. Even so, the Pueblo Revolt is still considered to be the most organized and successful Indian uprising in the New World. Over the next 100 years, Spanish colonization of New Mexico continued, and trade with anyone but the country of Mexico was forbidden. It wasn't until 1821, when Mexico won independence from Spain and gained control of New Mexico, that the trade restrictions with the rest of the United States were lifted, and great caravans of North American settlers began arriving from the east. The Santa Fe Trail became the first major western trade route, a 900-mile trek from Missouri across the plains of Kansas to the trail's end, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Each spring, 100 or more wagons with huge iron-rimmed wheels transported much-needed supplies across the Kansas plains and tall grass prairies of New Mexico. Fort Union, to the east of Santa Fe, was once the largest 19th century military installation in the Southwest. The fort was established after New Mexico officially became a territory of the United States in 1850 to help protect settlers and travelers on the Santa Fe Trail. Hundreds of covered wagons pass this way en route to Santa Fe, each filled to capacity with furniture, cloth, kitchen supplies, and tools. As the railroad opened up this part of the country to an ever-increasing number of people, art colonies began to flourish in Santa Fe, as explained by art broker Tony Atwell.
Well, the original artists and the original art colony in the area developed around the turn of the century, largely as a result of the trains coming out to the west and the southwest. Ultimately, more and more artists were drawn to this area because of the quality of the light, a very warm quality of light, the tricultural heritage that's here amongst the Native Americans, the Spanish, and the Anglos, and the fact that they had artistic freedom to express themselves in any way they saw fit. There's almost 5,000 artists in the market, producing the largest diversity of subject matter and medium in the country today.
Indigenous art forms thrive in this historic town, as well as an integrated mix of contemporary interpretations, inspired by the original Indian and Hispanic traditions. Considered to be one of the nation's great art markets, Santa Fe has over 200 galleries and sculpture gardens which line the city's plazas and streets. Santa Fe's cultural scene is richly varied. The Santa Fe Opera is known internationally for its summer productions and is considered to be one of America's most important opera houses. The magnificent theater seats approximately 1,900 and is set against a backdrop of expansive mountain views. Its spectacular setting draws opera buffs to Santa Fe from around the world. Each summer, the season begins with 4 days of gala celebrations, including a tailgate party before the first performance on opening night in the theater parking lot. The largest collection of folk art from around the world resides at the Museum of International Folk Art. The Hispanic Heritage Wing, opened in 1989, displays the nation's most diverse collection of Spanish and Hispanic colonial folk art. The Girard Wing contains the lifelong collection of Alexander and Susan Girard, which includes ritual art, toys, and textiles from over 100 countries. The scenic high road north from Santa Fe to Taos passes Nambe Pueblo, where hikers can walk along Nambe Creek to a series of dramatic waterfalls. This pueblo is well known for the annual July 4th Nambe Falls celebration. The day-long festivities include ceremonial dancing by members of the Nambe Pueblo and by other neighboring pueblos. While Pueblo Indians uphold their belief in Christianity, they maintain their original ceremonies and practices. In time-honored rituals, Pueblo Indians continue to express their deep respect for nature. Traditional dances are often dances of prayer, as well as thanksgiving for the earth's gifts. The corn dance is performed by most Pueblo people twice a year, in early spring and in autumn. It is performed at planting time as a prayer for a healthy crop and for sufficient rains. In the fall, the corn dance thanks the spirits and Mother Earth for producing a good and bountiful harvest, which will sustain the tribe during the winter months. The buffalo dance honors this great animal, which is still held in high esteem by all Native Americans. The buffalo is considered to have contributed the most in the animal kingdom to the survival of native tribes across this land. The buffalo meat provided sustenance, the hide was used for clothing and shelter, and the bones were utilized for tools and warring implements. Every part of the buffalo was useful, and nothing went to waste. The high road continues past picturesque Hispanic farming villages first established in the 18th century. Shaded by cottonwood trees, the peaceful Spanish village of Chimayo is home to the brightly colored Chimayo blankets and rugs, often characterized by boldly striped designs. Hispanic master weavers like the Ortega family have been practicing their craft and working the Ortega handmade looms for 8 generations. In the early 1800s, expert weavers were sent from Spain to revive the art form, and now almost 200 years later, Chimayo's residents are still proudly continuing the tradition and passing it on to their children. This quiet town is also known for El Santuario de Chimayo. Thousands of worshipers make a pilgrimage to this chapel each year during Holy Week. They walk the roads and freeways, some from as far away as Albuquerque, a distance of over 80 miles. Directed to this site by a vision, the man who built this chapel in 1816 was reportedly healed of a deathly illness upon touching the ground where the chapel now stands. Since then, many miraculous cures have been reported, attributed to the sacred earth on which the chapel is built. In a room off the altar, a sample of the soil believed to have healing powers can be collected from a small hole in the ground. Crutches, notes of thanks, and other testaments to healing have been left behind over the years. The high road stretches on from Chimayo to Taos, offering breathtakingly beautiful scenery dotted with tiny Spanish colonial villages. The remote town of Truchas, also built during the Spanish period, was the location used for much of Robert Redford's film, The Malambra Beanfield War. Set on a high plateau between the towering peak of Taos Mountain and a deep gorge carved by the mighty Rio Grande is the magical town of Taos. As in Santa Fe, Native American, Spanish, and Anglo people live and work harmoniously in this small community. In fact, it is this cultural mix and the town's dramatic setting that have been attracting travelers and artists to Taos for centuries. Small enough to walk from one end to another, this charming village is best explored on foot. Numerous galleries and bookstores are scattered throughout the narrow streets, and specific historic sites surround the town's central plaza. 2 blocks west of the plaza is the restored home of the co-founder of the Taos Society of Artists, Ernst Blumenschein. During a sketching journey to Mexico in 1898, East Coast artists Ernst Blumenschein and Bert Phillips were waylaid in Taos for several days due to a broken wagon wheel. They became so enamored with the unusual beauty of the area and its colorful residents that they decided to settle here permanently. In 1915, they co-founded the Taos Society of Artists, a key force in establishing Taos as a major art colony. It wasn't long before the art community in New York took notice, and other prominent artists were drawn to the area. Among them was Georgia O'Keeffe, one of the most important painters of the 20th century. The stark design and symmetrical grace of her paintings of animal skulls became her trademark. After living in Taos for 2 years, writer D.H. Lawrence once wrote, "For a greatness of beauty, I have never experienced anything like New Mexico." The migration of artists continues today, as Taos is still very much an artistic and literary town, with a diverse blend of creative people, some who have made a distinct mark on American art. A few miles south of Taos is one of the most photographed and painted 18th century missions, the Church of St. Francis of Assisi. Built in 1730 to convert the Taos Indians, the heavily buttressed structure is noted for the irregular lines of its massive adobe walls. Situated alongside the Rio Pueblo, the historic Martinez Hacienda is one of the few remaining Spanish colonial haciendas open to the public in the Southwest. This fortress-like home, constructed in 1804 around 2 placitos, or patios, was owned by the important merchant and one-time mayor of Taos, Don Antonio Martinez. Period rooms depict the rugged lifestyle of northern New Mexico in the early 1800s, and exhibits in this living history museum demonstrate aspects of Spanish colonial life much as it was 150 years ago. Just 2.5 miles from the town of Taos, a culture hundreds of years old has existed in one of the 2 oldest continuously inhabited settlements in the country. For nearly 900 years, the Taos Indians have been calling this multi-storied pueblo their home. The Taos Pueblo is the northernmost of New Mexico's 19 pueblo communities and is considered to be the most visually striking. Taos Indians are very conservative and prefer their traditional ways. No electricity or running water is used, and the Tewa language is still spoken as it has been throughout the ages. Taos offers excellent year-round outdoor recreation activities. In the summer, the surrounding mountains and the bright sunny climate are ideal for hiking and camping, and campgrounds are abundant. The white waters of the Rio Grande are also becoming increasingly popular for river rafting and kayaking. In the winter months, it's world-class skiing at Taos Ski Valley. Located in the southern end of the Rocky Mountains, Taos receives an average of 320 inches of light powder snowfall each season. Known to have a high percentage of advanced and expert runs, Taos offers some of the best downhill skiing in the world. The Enchanted Circle Drive from Taos is an 85-mile circular tour on a National Forest scenic byway through spectacular mountain scenery. The road circles snow-capped Wheeler Peak, which at 13,161 feet is the highest point in New Mexico. Stunning views of mountains, meadows of wildflowers, and clear rushing streams surround scenic alpine towns like Red River and Eagle's Nest. First settled in the 1840s, the old ranching town of Cimarron, northeast of Taos, tells the story of the Wild West well. As a principal stop on the mountain branch of the Santa Fe Trail, by 1860, the town was bustling with activity. Cimarron, which means wild or untamed in Spanish, earned its name. Homesteaders, miners, cowboys, and outlaws alike drank and gambled in the town's 15 saloons, and arguments ended in gunfights almost every night out in the dusty streets. A New Mexico newspaper once reported, "Things are quiet in Cimarron. No one's been killed in 3 days." The historic St. James Hotel began as a saloon in 1873, host to many of the West's most notorious gunslingers, among them outlaw Jesse James, Sheriff Pat Garrett, and train robber Black Jack Ketchum. Within a few short years, 26 murders were reportedly committed at this establishment, and numerous bullet holes in the pressed tin ceiling are still visible. When the St. James underwent restoration in 1985, the hotel's registers were discovered, confirming visits by other prominent figures of the Old West. Buffalo Bill, Annie Oakley, Bat Masterson, all walked these halls and slept in these rooms. Down one hallway is the closed door of room 18, no longer used by hotel guests because of a particularly persistent ghost who refuses to leave. Hidden among the ponderosa pines, deep in the Jemez Mountain wilderness, the Los Alamos Ranch Boys School was the location Robert Oppenheimer chose when in 1941 he was asked by the government to help select an isolated site for a top-secret research laboratory. The school was forced to close its doors in 1942 to make room for the government's highly classified Manhattan Project. Hundreds of scientists began to arrive into the area by train, and prefabricated apartments and barracks were constructed to house them. An incredible shroud of secrecy was maintained, and even the scientists involved in the project and their families were not apprised of their destination. Many did not even know exactly why they were there. On July 16, 1945, the secret was revealed. In the early morning hours, the first atomic bomb was raised 100 feet to the top of a steel tower and detonated at the Trinity site over the deserts of southern New Mexico. The world would be forever changed. In 1962, the closed community of Los Alamos was opened up by the federal government. and the process of selling off government land holdings and creating a more typical city began. Los Alamos National Laboratory is still involved in classified weapon research, but its work has extended in recent years into the fields of lasers and superconductors. It is often noted that there are more PhDs per capita in Los Alamos than any other city in this country. Southern New Mexico is a vast, sparsely populated region of the state with an unusual diversity of landscapes from forested mountains to great expanses of cactus prairie and windswept desert sands. The Rio Grande, one of the most important waterways in the United States, enters northern New Mexico from Colorado and runs the length of the state from north to south before continuing on to Texas and the Gulf of Mexico. After the river drops down through the gorge to the north, it slows and widens, becoming more useful for agriculture. Pueblo Indians farmed the fertile Rio Grande Valley for over 1,500 years, cultivating corn, beans, and chilies. Today, the rich soil of the Mesilla Valley, irrigated by the river, is a leading producer of many crops, including alfalfa, pecans, and New Mexico's famous chilies. In the town of Hatch, the chili capital of the world, a wide variety of chilies are cultivated, and in autumn the extensive fields are ready to be harvested. After the chilies are picked, they're loosened and separated for easy flow into the processing plant. The chilies are then inspected and washed and placed on trays in preparation for drying. Once dried, they're chopped and diced to become one of a countless number of products that utilize this fiery fruit. Long clusters strung together in bright red strands are known as ristras and can be both decorative and useful. Las Cruces, the second largest city in New Mexico, lies in the heart of the Mesilla Valley and is framed by the rugged Organ Mountains. The charm of its past is retained in Old Mesilla, the original settlement. The community, typical of many Mexican and Spanish villages, revolves around the plaza, with the San Albino Church at one end and numerous restaurants and gift shops surrounding the central square. La Posta restaurant was once a stop on the old Butterfield Overland stage, a 19th century mail and passenger stagecoach that ran between St. Louis and San Francisco. Another stop on the Butterfield stage between Mesilla and Tucson, Arizona, was the town of Steins in the far southwestern corner of New Mexico. Deserted long ago, this cluster of buildings has been restored by the town's private owner, Larry Link, who discusses some of the area's early history.
The little town dates back 1858, and how the first settlers got here, there were gold and silver miners, sheep herders, cattlemen, workers on the Butterfield stage. There's about 35 people here. And then when the railroad started coming in, 1875, they started tearing out the front part of the mountain up here. And they were crushing the rock for the ballast of the railroad.
With the arrival of the railroad and the stone quarry, Steins became a bustling railroad station town, which at its peak had a population of over 1,300. Once construction of the railroad was completed, the stone quarry shut down, and in time the area's rocky terrain and lack of water became the major factors in the town's decline. Traveling north from the ghost town of Steins to the Gila National Forest is a lesson in New Mexico's geographic extremes Much of southern New Mexico is desert landscape characterized by dry expanses of cactus prairie, where cows roam amongst the cholla and yucca on huge isolated cattle ranches. As the road climbs north, the terrain changes significantly upon entering the Gila National Forest and Wilderness Area. Spanning 3.5 million acres, this is the first wilderness area ever designated in this country, and it protects some of the most ruggedly beautiful scenery in New Mexico. Surrounded by the Gila Wilderness is the remote Gila Cliff Dwellings National Monument. Pueblo people who built their homes in natural caves are known as cliff dwellers. Wow. The architects of this community were of the ancient Mogollon culture. Built overlooking the west bank of the Gila River, this dwelling consisted of 40 rooms, where some 50 people lived from about 1280 AD to the early 1300s. They farmed fields along the river, and on the mesa tops they grew beans, squash, and corn. When excavated, this storage bin was found to be partially filled with corn cobs harvested over 700 years ago. Building these masonry walls took a great deal of effort, since the clay and water used to make the mortar had to be carried up from the stream 175 feet below. Stone tools were used to cut through the bedrock to level the floors, and the roof was supported by large beams shaped by stone axes. Another site in the Gila National Forest worthy of exploration is Whitewater Canyon. Once a hideout for Apache Chief Geronimo during the Indian Wars of the mid-1800s, this narrow box canyon features the unusual catwalk, a sturdy steel walkway which clings to the side of the rock wall, allowing visitors to venture into the canyon while suspended above the flowing waters of the creek below. Set out in the high prairie grasses on the vast plains of San Agustin, a series of 27 dish-shaped antennas act as a single instrument to form the world's largest radio telescope. Today, scientific history is made by astronomers from around the world who come here to use this very large array radio telescope to study the universe. Instead of analyzing the light with an optic telescope, scientists collect and study the radio waves emitted naturally by cosmic objects. These great wave-like dunes of pure white sand are not the unearthly surface of some distant planet, but one of the world's true natural wonders. Rising from the heart of the Tularosa Basin, White Sands National Monument preserves the largest gypsum dune field in the world. Driven by persistent southwest winds, these 275 square miles of brilliant white sand are always in motion, forming dunes that can exceed 60 feet in height. The gypsum comes from the light-colored layers of rock in the surrounding San Andres and Sacramento Mountains. Rain and snow dissolve the gypsum, and the prevailing winds carry the particles into the basin below, creating an immense sea of sand. To the east of White Sands, the terrain changes dramatically once again, upon reaching the Capitan Mountains and the Lincoln National Forest. Capitan is the birthplace of Smokey Bear. Larry Bindi, ranger at the Smokey Bear Historical State Park.
The reason that the park is in Capitan is because in 1950, following a disastrous forest fire in the Capitan Mountains, one of the fire crews found a little baby bear cub clinging to a tree. That bear was badly burned, was taken into fire camp, and in turn flown to a veterinary clinic in Santa Fe, where he was nursed back to health and became known as the living symbol Smokey Bear.
The ad campaign "Only You Can Prevent Forest Fires" is funded strictly by donations and has become one of the longest running and most successful in history. Located in the tall pines of the White Mountains, Ruidoso is one of the state's premier mountain resort towns, especially popular with New Mexico's neighbors from Texas. Billing itself as a year-round playground, Ruidoso offers a wide range of recreational activities. During the winter months, Ruidoso's Ski Apache is a favorite with downhill skiers from all over the Southwest. This scenic ski area is operated by the enterprising Mescalero Apache tribe. In the spring and summer, quarter horse and thoroughbred racing at Ruidoso Downs is a major attraction. One of the sport's biggest events, the All-American Futuria, is held on Labor Day, the last day of the racing season. Tagged as the world's richest quarter horse race, the purse can exceed $2 million for a race that lasts for less than 1 minute.
Treacherously forging his way to the front. He's a fast man, charging though with a classic dash on the outside and a classic dash, and he's a fast man. Hit the wire right together. A photo finish.
The betting continues at Casino Apache, at the beautiful Inn of the Mountain Gods Resort. Located just outside of town, in the heart of the Mescalero Apache Indian Reservation, this resort complex is also owned and run by the Mescalero Apaches. At an altitude of 7,200 feet, the cool mountain air and the pristine alpine setting is ideal for a game of golf. Summer nights in Ruidoso can be enjoyed at the Flying J Ranch, where over 400 guests turn out for a chuck wagon supper and festive music jamboree. The territory of New Mexico in the late 1800s experienced a great wave of violence and lawlessness, and nowhere was this more evident than in the town of Lincoln. Designated as a National Historic Landmark, these buildings have been well preserved, and surprisingly little has changed since the notorious days of the Lincoln County War. Sparked by an intense rivalry between two warring factions of merchants, L.G. Murphy and John Tunstall, a vicious fight for economic control of the town ensued, and everyone in the entire county chose sides. When Tunstall was shot and killed on a wintry night in 1878, the bloody feud erupted. One participant vowing to kill everyone involved in Tunstall's death was none other than Billy the Kid. Arrested by Lincoln County Sheriff Pat Garrett and sentenced to hang, the young sharpshooter made a daring escape from the Lincoln County Courthouse, killing 2 guards in the process. This bold flight from Lincoln established the Kid as the territory's most wanted fugitive. It wasn't long before Pat Garrett tracked Billy the Kid to the home of friend Pete Maxwell at Old Fort Sumner. Taken by surprise, 2 shots ended the outlaw's life at the young age of 21 on the moonlit evening of July 14, 1881. Southern New Mexico comes to an end at the state's most frequented attraction, Carlsbad Caverns National Park, located in the Chihuahuan Desert. Over 250 million years ago, the surrounding mountains were part of an ancient limestone reef under the Permian Sea, and fish once swam where cactus can be seen today. As the ocean receded and the Guadalupe Mountains were uplifted from the ocean floor, a process taking millions of years created these large and magnificently decorated chambers below the Earth's surface. Again, it is water which is responsible for the incredible formations that adorn these caves. Rain and snow percolate through the soil, and drop by drop, tiny bits of limestone crystals are left on the walls, ceilings, and floors, creating these endlessly varied formations. Two of the most common types of cave formations are stalactites, which hang from the ceiling, and stalagmites, which are usually much more massive in size and grow from the floor of a cave toward the ceiling, reaching heights of 60 feet. Carlsbad Caverns is one of the largest cave systems in North America and is considered to be one of the most majestic ever discovered. The sheer size is staggering. The caverns are comprised of a maze of chambers that extend approximately 30 miles, reaching a depth of 1,037 feet at its lowest point. At dusk on most summer nights, another Carlsbad Cavern phenomena takes place at the cave's natural entrance. Hundreds of thousands of migratory Mexican free-tailed bats emerge from the dark recesses of the cavern to spend the night in pursuit of flying insects, their only source of food. The bats exit the cave in a group at a rate of 5,000 each minute, creating an unforgettable sight for park visitors. Since prehistoric times, the rich legacy of Native American culture has continued to unfold in northwestern New Mexico. Situated on the banks of the mighty Rio Grande in the foothills of the Sandia Mountains, Albuquerque is New Mexico's largest city. This community has 1/3 of the state's population, and its youthful and energetic lifestyle is complemented by 300 days a year of clear blue skies. Albuquerque's original settlement is preserved in Old Town, with the impressive San Felipe de Neri Church as its focal point. The traditional Spanish Plaza and a wide variety of shops and restaurants housed in centuries-old adobes offer a real flavor of village life dating back to 1706. Just minutes from downtown, Sandia Peak Tram, the longest tramway in North America, carries visitors to the top of the 10,400-foot Sandia Peak. This 2.5-mile journey takes 20 minutes and passes over desert terrain at the base of the mountain range through 4 of the Earth's 7 life zones. The vantage point from the observation deck affords a panoramic view spanning 11,000 square miles. The colorful sunsets and sparkling city lights can also be enjoyed from inside the Summit Restaurant. Sandia Crest is a popular launching point for hang gliders, particularly during the annual Sandia Classic, one of 4 competitions sanctioned by the U.S. Hang Gliding Association. Pilots on the hang gliding circuit are earning points for possible selection to the U.S. World Hang Gliding Team. Gliders compete in a timed race to a predetermined goal within a 100-mile radius of Sandia Peak. Albuquerque's climate and terrain are also ideal for hot air ballooning. For 9 days each October, the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta attracts more than 650 hot air balloons, pilots, crews, and spectators from around the world. Over 1.5 million people each year witness this kaleidoscope of brilliant colors and shapes. Often said to be the most photographed event in the United States, this is the largest ballooning fiesta in the world. Located atop a 367-foot sandstone mesa is one of New Mexico's most striking sights, Acoma Pueblo, the Sky City. Thought to have been built around 1150 AD, Acoma is one of the 2 oldest continuously inhabited communities in the country, along with Taos Pueblo. At one time, several thousand Indians lived high above the plain on the 70-acre mesa top, planting corn, beans, and squash in the fields below. Today, approximately 13 families still reside here year-round, while other tribal members choose instead to live in neighboring communities, returning at intervals during the year for traditional celebrations or to sell their handmade pottery to those that visit the pueblo. never been electricity or running water at Yakima, as life on these ancient streets continues unchanged, as it has for centuries. Still in use today, the San Esteban del Rey mission was built by the Yakima Indians at the direction of Spanish missionaries, and construction was completed in 1640. All the building materials used were hauled by hand up the steep slopes of the mesa by means of these ancient stairs carved into stone. The roof beams, 40 feet in length, were carried on men's backs from over 30 miles away. To the west, at El Morro National Monument, a huge sandstone cliff known as Inscription Rock rises from the valley floor. A welcome landmark for weary travelers, prehistoric Indians were the first to use this spot as a campsite. In the late 1500s, Spanish expeditions also rested at this shaded waterhole during their journeys. The first inscription carved into the rock surface by a European was made in 1605 by Juan de Onate, governor and colonizer of New Mexico. The translation reads, "Passed by here, the governor Don Juan de Onate, from the discovery of the Sea of the South on the 16th of April, 1605. For 300 years, Spanish soldiers and priests passed this way, and many carved their names and notations into the stone. Later, U.S. soldiers added their inscriptions, until 1906, when El Morro was set aside as a national monument. Long before the arrival of the Spanish, Zuni Indians and their ancestors had lived both in the El Morro Valley and at the site of their present-day village to the west. Today, the Zuni Pueblo, with 8,500 members, is the largest of New Mexico's 19 Indian pueblos. Zuni artists like Rolanda Halu have long been admired for the beautiful precision inlay and needlepoint jewelry which they create from silver, coral, shell, and turquoise. The Zuni needlepoint style is characterized by its complex clusters of tiny stones encased in silver settings. Lying just a few miles to the north and northwest of Gallup, New Mexico, is the vast Navajo Nation. The Navajo tribe is the largest in the country, and its reservation spans over 16 million acres, a large portion of which extends into the state of Arizona. An unmistakable landmark on the Navajo reservation is Shiprock, rising 1,450 feet from the desert floor. This imposing monolith is held sacred by the Navajo. Legend tells of ancient Navajo ancestors who fled their attackers by taking refuge in the rock, which sprouted wings and carried them off to safety. Referred to as the Indian jewelry capital of the world, Gallup is best known as the main trade center for the Navajo Nation and for the nearby Zuni Pueblo. Established as traders on the Navajo reservation since the turn of the century, the Richardson family continues their long-standing relationship with the Navajo. The cash pawn business in Gallup has been the preferred form of banking for the Navajo for years. Instead of going to an established banking institution to apply for a loan, Navajo bring in valuables like saddles, squash blossom necklaces, and concha belts to be temporarily exchanged for cash. The items are then carefully tagged and kept in the trader's huge vaulted rooms while monthly payments are made on the loan. The fact that the item is safely stored, and that the borrower can stop by to view the item until it is redeemed, is very reassuring to the Navajo. Although by law, a pawned item can be sold 30 days after the customer neglects the monthly payments, most pawn is held 1 year beyond the expiration date, and numerous attempts are made to contact the owner before the item becomes what is called dead pawn and can be resold. Situated along historic Route 66, Gallup played a part in the rich legacy of this legendary route. Stretching across 7 states en route to California, Route 66 runs right through the center of Gallup. Today, part of the original road parallels Interstate 40. In Gallup, a number of historic buildings and 1950s-style signs line the blocks of old Route 66, but none are more famous than the El Rancho Hotel. Built in 1937 by the brother of celebrated Hollywood director D.W. Griffith, the El Rancho was a second home to countless movie stars brought here by the many Western films made in the area. Autographed photos of the stars that stayed here adorn the walls of this handsome two-story open lobby. It is the austere beauty of Gallup's Red Rock Canyons, with towering cliffs of eroded sandstone and sun-bleached mesas, that served as the perfect backdrop for the dozens of classic westerns filmed in the surrounding countryside. The highlight of Gallup's year is the Intertribal Indian Ceremonial held in the month of August. Native Americans from all over the country, both participants and spectators, along with visitors from around the world, attend this six-day event. A part of the festival, the All-Indian Rodeo, is held in the large arena at the nearby Red Rock State Park. In the evenings, traditional dance performances take place in the park's smaller amphitheater. The very finest Native American dancers throughout the country travel to Gallup each year to participate. One of the Southwest's most imposing ancient ruins, and one of the state's true wonders, Chaco Culture National Historical Site, preserves the ruins of a complex social, economic, and religious center that flourished between 900 and 1200 AD. It is thought that as many as 5,000 Indians lived in Chaco Canyon during what has been called the Anasazi Golden Age, farming fields fed by a complex irrigation system and building great masonry towns. Pueblo Bonito is the most celebrated of the great houses and is also considered by archaeologists to be one of the most sophisticated examples of Anasazi architecture. This four-storied complex contains over 600 rooms and 40 subterranean kivas believed to have been used for religious purposes. Chaco is the center of a vast trading network, evidenced by over 400 miles of roads, which link Chaco Canyon to some 75 other communities. The many roads of New Mexico have always kept their promise of discovery. Ancient trade routes linked prehistoric settlements long before Spanish conquistadors traveled the King's Royal Highway. And the Santa Fe Trail opened the west to great wagon trains that rolled across the now silent prairie. Today's travelers are still making the journey, enchanted by New Mexico's unparalleled natural beauty and a rich historical past waiting to be discovered, along the well-worn paths of those that came before.